All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to
Good morning.
Conversations with Rotary Action People for Wednesday, June 3rd. Today's topic is CWP. Is it necessary in South Carolina, and what does it take to get it? Our speaker today from Columbia, Mr. Patrick Nolan. Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning. You're freezing up on me a little bit.
All right, we'll see if we can get that worked out. We're glad to have you here. To kick off today, if you are joining us on the Zoom call, please go over to the chat box. Tell us your Rotary Club and where you're watching from this morning. And we're also streaming this on the Rotary International District 7770 Facebook page. If you're watching over there, below the stream, just post a comment on your Rotary Club and where you're watching from. We'll now go over the vision statement of Rotary, which is a very powerful statement and more powerful maybe today in what we're going through than ever. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. To introduce Patrick to a few key dignitaries on the line on the Zoom call here this morning. Past District Governor from the Rotary Club of Hilton Head Island, David Terrard and his wife, Susan. Past District Governor from the Rotary Club of Hilton Head Island, Mr. Bernie Rydell. Past District Governor from the Rotary Club of Lake Murray, Irmo, Mr. Rod Funderburk. Good morning, Rod. District Governor-elect from the Rotary Club of Myrtle Beach, Ms. Pauline Levesque. Also, District Governor-elect nominee designee, I got it right today, Bob, from down there in the Hilton Head, Beaufort, Sea Island Rotary Club, Mr. Bob Gross. The public image chair for our district, lady who works really hard to make all of this happen. From the 5 Points Rotary Club, Miss Mary Gask. Good morning, Mary. And the man behind the scenes running the stream for us, our district communications chair from the Somerville Evening Rotary Club, Mr. Terry Moore. Thank you, Terry, for all you do. Patrick, I'm excited to learn about this because when we were talking prior to you coming on,
yes, sir. I
knew I was going to learn a lot, but I'm hoping that those people watching today are also going to learn a lot. There goes our mascot, the cat, running through Mary's background there. So I think how we want to start this off is, should you get a CWP, what happens?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, particularly, as you said, in the times we're in now. I think getting the CWP, physically getting it, taking the class, passing the test, learning the law and so forth is the easy part comparatively. But if you actually choose to carry a firearm, to exercise your CWP, that's a life-changing event. It's not just one more thing you do in the morning to put on a holster or something, but it affects everything you do that whole day. You're carrying deadly force. You're going out into situations that you can't predict. And the last thing in the world you want to do is have to use or present that firearm. A lot of people think if you got a CWP, you can walk down dark streets and you can go into difficult situations and you've got a firearm. Well, actually, the first thing you learn about carrying a firearm is something called situational awareness. Instead of just blithely going down the street, not paying attention to what's going on, not looking what's across the street, you're actually putting yourself in a situation where you might have to use a firearm. So instead of being bold and going places you ordinarily wouldn't, it's the opposite. If you see a couple people in a parking lot, you're going to park your car, maybe it's at night, maybe it's dark, you don't do it. You go around the block, you go somewhere else because you don't want to have to get into some kind of a confrontation. So the question is, getting the CWP, I think, is a good idea. Learning about firearms, learning about the law, particularly self-defense. But then the next step of actually carrying is a really profound step.
So in the case of someone like myself and maybe a few others on the call here that don't have a CWP, how do you get a CWP?
Okay, well, first of all, you go, and there's a panel on the left-hand side, and you can look up all the information. You basically have to take a course. The course will cover state law and law of self-defense, and will involve learning how to operate your firearm, how to handle it safely, holster, unholster, draw, fire, and so forth. And then it's a matter of checking off all those boxes, sending it in with a check for $50. And excuse me, it's interesting. You can't use a personal check to sled. You have mad check to sled to try to get a firearm permit.
And Patrick, just real quick, are you connected to Wi-Fi or not right now?
I should be.
Okay, because you're buffering a lot, and I really want to ask that question again in hopes that we don't get that buffering, so that the whole answer can come through clearly. So can you repeat yourself? How do you get a CWP?
Okay. First step is you go to the SLED website, sled.sc.gov, and on the left-hand side, there are a series of menus. You click on the CWP program, and it'll take you to the page where we'll give you all the information about what you need to do, how you need to complete it. You take a course. The course will cover legal aspects of carrying, where you can and can't carry. It'll cover self-defense, the laws of self-defense, the reality of self-defense, which to my mind is the most important part of a CWP, is knowing when and if you can draw that firearm in a situation. The summary point is you can only do that to protect innocent life. An innocent life has a specific meaning. We can go into self-defense later. In fact, I hope we do. They arrange, you have your fingerprints taken electronically now. You used to have to go to the sheriff's office to get that. You copy your driver's license. You send that in with your form, your instructor's form, saying you've completed the course and you've had a high enough score to qualify. And then they send it through a state check. They check your background through the state, through the sheriff. They check your background through the FBI, through fingerprints, and they check your DMV record. And I'll tell you, some years ago, I had a 55-year-old student who took my class, applied for his permit, and his permit was rejected. And it turned out it was for a excessive number of speeding tickets. They check your record, and there's a certain number. If you have more than a certain number of moving violations within a period of time, they will reject your application. I had another issue one time where a student had when he was 16 or 17, had a DUI or something like that, and it was expunged. He went through a rehabilitation program, and it was expunged. He didn't put that on his application. They rejected it. When we finally found out why they rejected it, they said, oh, all you have to do is put that on the form, but since you left it off, it's not held against you because it was expunged, but if you left it off, it was an incomplete and misleading application. So they check you very thoroughly.
So for how much does it cost to get a CWP?
Amazingly, it was $50 when it started, and it's still $50. I can't believe it. I mean, it started in 1996, and it's still only $50.
And about how long is the course?
The course, it used to be mandated to be 8 hours. now it's you simply cover certain subjects. It doesn't have to be a certain amount of time. My courses used to run about 10 hours. Sometimes I break it into 2 days because I really focus on self-defense, the law of self-defense, because I think that's really incredibly important if you're carrying a firearm, to know when and if you can use it, or even present it. Now, I got my permit, I think, in 1999, and I've carried continuously pretty much since then. And I have only had to put my hand on the grip. I've never had to draw my firearm, only twice in 20 years. And part of that is, as I mentioned before, situational awareness. Avoid situations of possible confrontation. No longer can you get angry at somebody in the car and give them a one-finger salute or something, because that could trigger a whole series of events and could end up in a shooting. And even if it turns out to be a righteous shooting, you're going to be charged, you're going to be arrested, you're going to have legal bills. So you want to avoid at all costs. The only time you want to present that firearm is to protect innocent life. And I can go through some of the elements that have to be present to justify that.
Yeah, sure thing. I think that's a question coming up definitely here for sure. I will say, for those interested in learning more about CWP and that website that Patrick referred to, you can find a link to that in the chat box. And thank you to Jimmy for posting that link there. Appreciate that. Next, I think we want you to talk a little bit about, gun safety. Because, okay, now you've got a CWP, but we need to really talk about the safety of holding guns at this point.
Feedback or something.
Okay, did that come back through clearly? We want you to talk about gun safety. I think we may have lost Patrick here, guys.
He's still physically on.
I don't see him on anymore. Yeah, we lost him. No, now he's muted. Somehow he's muted.
Okay, now I'm muted. I'm
All
muted.
right. Good deal. Talk to us about gun safety. Patrick, can you hear me?
One of the important things you do. Yeah.
You're good. I just want to make sure we can hear you. We're having a tough time hearing you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, one of the important things you learn in the CWP class is basic gun safety. And I think that's critically important. You learn not only how to handle a firearm, but you also learn how to store it, how to keep it out of the hands of unauthorized persons. And that's not a cookie cutter solution. It's not the same, a family with children, older adults like myself and my wife. It's a practice that fits in with your lifestyle. Keep it separate from ammunition, who has access to it, and so forth. But the gun safety, I'd like to get into that and talk about a few specifics. And I don't know if you can see me. I've got some props here. I can try to demonstrate some things. Will that work?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay. One of the things is you treat every firearm as if it's loaded. It's not necessarily you treat it as if it's loaded. And one of the things that means is you will not allow the barrel or the muzzle of this firearm to point at anything you're not willing to destroy. So if you're going to handle a firearm, first thing you do is establish a safe direction. Now, for purposes of this, I'm going to treat that as a safe direction. Point the firearm. One of the things, if you hand a person who's not familiar with firearms a pistol, either a pistol or a revolver like this, one of the things that we'll do is do this. It's just sort of an automatic thing. They'll put their finger in the trigger. You should learn to handle your firearm like this. You would only put your finger in the trigger guard when you know your target and you're ready to shoot. And you not only need to know your target, but what's behind it, okay? So basically, always point firearms in a safe direction, treat all firearms as if they're loaded, keep your finger outside the firearm until you've directed it at the target and you've decided to shoot. Always be sure of your target and what's behind it. So one of the first things, if people just don't do this, it's going to be a much safer situation. The other thing is, this is a plastic gun, but I treat it as if it's a live gun. I'm not going to do anything with this that I wouldn't do with a real gun, because you don't want to develop habits, okay? Bad habits. So just learning that one thing. The other critical one is, if you never allow the muzzle to point at something you're not willing to destroy, even if an accidental discharge does occur, it's not going to hurt someone. It's not going to cause an injury or a death. So those are some of the basics. I'll give you one other thing, and I am going to use a actual firearm, okay? This is a semi-automatic pistol. Now, if I were to hand this to you, what I would want you to do as the first thing is, I want you to verify that it's unloaded. And you would do that by looking down the barrel and manually seeing there's no magazine in it. The other thing you could do is simply rack the slide several times and make sure that nothing comes out of it, okay? Now here's the thing. I'm an instructor. I check this gun and I say it's unloaded. I hand it to you. You should also check that it's unloaded. That's not rude, it's not impolite, it's safety. So treat all guns as if they're loaded, verify it's not loaded. I hand it to you, and the only time I would hand you a loaded gun, or anyone should hand someone a loaded gun, is when they're on a range facing a berm where it can't do any damage, okay? So that's how you would verify that a semi-automatic was unloaded. Here's a revolver, okay? To verify the revolver is unloaded, you would drop the cylinder and check every one of the chambers, okay? Again, if I did this in front of you, handed you the firearm, you should do the same thing. It's not rude, it's not impolite. In fact, it shows the person handing you the firearm that you know what you're doing and you're a safe person to be around. Those are a couple of issues. Do you have any other questions?
So you did gun safety. How about let's talk about some basic elements of self-defense.
Okay. There are several different ways of summarizing that. Favorite one I use is, blocking on his name right now, Law of Self-Defense. I can't recall his name right now. Branca?
Andrew Branca.
Anyway, Branca, thank you. I don't know why I had a brain freeze there, but I appreciate that. He's got a 5-element description of self-defense. One of the things to know is there's an absolute defense to a criminal indictment. That is, I wasn't there, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. And if you can prove that, you're off the hook. Self-defense requires that you establish 5 things as being true. If any one of those things, thank you, if any one of those things is not true, self-defense is not legally justified. And let me run through them. And I'm glad we got experts on here who can correct me, okay? First element is innocence. As I mentioned before, you can't provoke a conflict or agree to mutual combat and then decide that you're losing and escalate to a firearm. That would break down your self-defense. Second thing is imminence, and not in any order. It has to be, all 5 of these things have to be present. Imminence means it's about to happen, right there. It's not somebody calls you on the phone, it's not somebody yells from across the street. if there's directly an imminent threat of death or severe bodily injury. Third thing is proportionality. Don't reply to a fist in your face as if it were a knife or a gun or a club or a skateboard. Okay, your response should be proportional to the threat. Next thing is reasonableness. Would a reasonable person make the same judgment that you did, that there was an imminent threat of severe bodily injury or death? Or was it sort of a hysterical reaction? Somebody says, oh, I hate you, I could kill you. No weapon, no threat, no motion to enact that. That would be an unreasonable response. And lastly, avoidance. If you can, as I mentioned before, avoid situations. If you can get away without exposing yourself to greater danger, do it. Now, we have a castle doctrine. In the castle, there used to be the requirement in South Carolina law that you had a duty to retreat. That if somebody was coming at you, you had to get out of there no matter what. It was your duty to retreat, okay? With the possible exception if it took you into greater danger. You know, running from one individual going into a gang, like running into Minneapolis, Minnesota. Despite the fact that you have the right to stand your ground in an automobile that's being attacked, in a house or on the street where you have a legal right to be, if you can get out of there, get out of there. The best gunfight is the one you don't have. Carrying a firearm is only to be used when all of these elements are present and you simply have no other choice, protecting innocent life.
So you've said protecting innocent life maybe 10 times on this call so far.
Yes.
So what is innocent life?
Okay, it's yourself or family member or a person you know is innocent that's being attacked and threatened with severe bodily injury or death. So what that means is you can't simply pull your gun out because somebody's going after somebody else that started a fight. If they're fighting, they're fighting. They're not innocent. They got involved in the event. Now, if it escalates to a point where somebody's about ready to get killed, well, then you make a judgment. But one of the other things, too, to keep in mind is there's a concept in South Carolina law called alter ego. And that is, if you step into a situation because you perceive something's going on, you take the role of the person you step in for. So let's say you walk into a grocery store and you see somebody running towards you, and the person behind him has a gun and they're running, and you do something to stop the person with the gun. Well, if that person had just named somebody, assumed the role of the person that did the naming, no right to do that, you have no right to do that. So it's very complicated. You can't, you know, the bad news bears used to say, don't assume, because you make an ass of you and me. You walk into a situation, you're carrying a firearm, don't assume you know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, you know, if you see innocent life or yourself is in imminent danger of severe bodily injury or death, well, then you can act, but reluctantly, if there's no other option.
So we do have some questions coming in from the viewers, and thank you for those. We're going to get to those right after this next one, but I know when we were talking last night, this is kind of how I thought it would be cool to kind of wrap it up before we went to the viewers' questions is, how did you even get into firearms in the first place?
Okay, as I told you, I grew up in Chicago. I never had a gun, never shot a handgun. I think I once shot a pump 22 at a fair or something like that. And the only time we ever saw a firearm is if somebody's uncle or brother or somebody was a police officer and were together, they'd unload their firearm and let you look at it. Okay, well, I went from Chicago, went to graduate school in Philadelphia, and nonchalantly was crossing the street on a Sunday night at around 10 o'clock, probably to get cigarettes because I smoked then. And two gentlemen came up to me and put a gun to my head and took my money, wanted me to go around the corner. And I don't think I'd be here today if I'd gone around the corner with them. It's a dark street. It's an area of Philadelphia known as Nicetown. So that sort of predisposed me to wanting to have self-defense. Now, I think I told you earlier that I was a Rotary Andy. I wasn't a member of Rotary. Lou Sutton Nolan, who's now my wife, was a Rotary member. And when we were first dating, one night, she said, and I to this day do not know what provoked the comment, but she said, "There's a gun in every room of this house and I know how to use them." And I immediately to myself said, I need to get to know this lady. Well, we're now married. And she had a bunch of her brother's guns, shotguns, rifles, pistols, and we started shooting them. As soon as I felt a little bit confident with shooting, I met her in '95. I got my CWP in 1996. Since then, I've had a number of firearms. I've assembled ARs, I've assembled M4s, I've done trigger jobs on my firearms. But I came into it very late in life because of West Virginia, who had a gun around their house.
All right. Now we're going to go to some viewers' questions here.
Okay. Stop the professor.
There you go. Do you need to own a gun before taking the CWP class?
It's not mandatory, and I know some instructors who will supply guns. And one thing I would say is if you're purchasing a firearm to take a class, make sure you have a chance to try it. A lot of ranges will let you rent or try a gun. Be sure it's the gun you're comfortable with and you can handle well. A lot of times, and I'll just give an example, if a woman comes in, a woman of a certain age, they'll say, "You want a small revolver." Well, small revolvers are great. They're very safe and they're very useful, but they're the hardest guns to shoot. Long trigger pull, etc. So you might want to try some guns before you actually get one, but it's not mandatory. And so, as I said, some instructors will supply them.
Next question here. My understanding is that South Carolina does not require weapons to be registered. If you have a CWP, do you have to register your weapon?
No.
Okay. How often do instructors have to recertify to teach the CWP class?
I believe it's every 5 years now. And you have to meet with SLED and take a seminar to be up to date on the law. It's basically as the law changes.
After
But it
getting
is
your
required
CWP,
between every renewal, you have to attend.
okay. After getting your CWP, how often do you recommend training? What type of training besides just target shooting?
Yeah, that's a great question. Shooting is a blocking on some words. Anyway, what I would suggest is you try to do it regularly. And one of the things that I did is after I got my CWP, I got into what's called action shooting. And there's one particular action shooting group. It's called IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. And it's built around how to deal with situations a CWP holder may confront. Situations you're going to a parking lot, and it simulates that. No, it's not one-on-one force training, but you learn, you're in front of people, people are watching you, the buzzer goes off, you've got to do certain things at certain times, reload the firearm, move, take a knee, use cover. It reinforces the basic principles of shooting. It's not realistic. I mean, nobody's shooting at you, nobody's coming at you with a knife, but it tries to do the best it can to simulate that. So I'd suggest IDPA is one. The other one is USPSA, United States Practical Shooting Association. That's a little more run and gun. That's how fast can you shoot this course? And whereas IDP is more oriented towards CWP, wear concealment, you draw from concealment, you use cover, etc.
Does part of the certification process include shooting at a range? And how often must you renew your CWP?
You catch me on one, it's 3 or 4 years. Once you qualify, you don't have to go through a shooting process again. You don't have to go through the shooting part of the certification. One thing I would add too is the certification test, the shooting test, is not really is that you know how to load and unload a gun safely in the view of an instructor, that you know how to holster and draw it safely, so that certifies that you can safely handle a gun. It doesn't. You don't have to be a marksman. You don't have to be Jerry Mikulik in order to pass it.
Should a regular person own a gun? And if you do own a gun, should you have a CWP?
Pardon me?
Should a regular person own a gun? And if you do own a gun, should you have a CWP?
Well, it depends. In South Carolina law, any citizen or any person who can legally own a firearm can have that firearm in their console, a closed console, or a closed glove box, okay? Or in the luggage area of an SUV or the trunk of a vehicle in a closed container with an integral, with a gun zipper or with a lock on it. So you can already carry a gun in your car. You can take it from your car to your home, from your home to your car, do it safely, do it in a case. Also, you can take it from your car to a rental property or back to your car. So you don't have to have a permit to own a gun. You don't have to have a permit to have a gun in your closed glove box or your closed console, but a CWP gives you a wider range of carry. And it also sets up a lot of situations where you're carrying your firearm and you find you have to go into a place that doesn't allow firearms. Or you go someplace and there's a valet parking and you need to leave your firearm in the car, but you can't leave it unlocked. So sometimes you need to get a safe and you need to be able to lock your gun up if you can have valet parking.
What is your opinion of people that leave guns and unlocked vehicles overnight only to be stolen?
I don't know what standards you have for language, but I have I don't want to say bad words. You shouldn't do it. Don't do it. And
this is the last question here is more of just a recommendation. You know, and this is, bear with me. This is it's got a little length to it here, but it's a recommendation.
Okay.
The viewer says, I have my late father-in-law's World War II model 45 pistol, and I've fired 45S and 9 millimeters in the military. I don't know anything about guns, so I'm literally just reading it verbatim here. Sorry. My father and grandmother were police officers in New York City, and they carried 38 shorts. There are 22 pistols and many more. Some are bulky, others easier to carry. What weapon would you recommend and how would you carry it?
Okay, there's a variety of ways to carry. There are inside the waistband holsters, which are pretty comfortable for smaller guns. You can also, there are things called belly bands, where if you have gym wear on, you can put a pistol in your belly band and no one knows you have it on. You have a t-shirt on and shorts and it doesn't stick out. Fanny packs are great. Fanny packs are wonderful because if you need to take it off and leave it, say you have a CWP, your wife has a CWP, you need to go to a place that doesn't allow firearm. So fanny packs are great. They give a lot of flexibility. You have your wallet, permit in there, and your firearm. Belly bands are great in summer and particularly hot weather in South Carolina. Inside the waistband holsters are good for a variety of weapons. But what you need to do is try them. I remember when I first was looking at the guns, I was at the shooting range, and I talked to the guy. I said, what holster should I get? And he said, well, everybody I know that has guns has a whole box full of holsters. I have a box full of holsters, fanny packs, belly bands, holsters inside the waist, outside the waist, this gun, that gun, and so forth. So it's a matter of finding it and using it. I envy the guy with the 45. A 45 is a wonderful firearm. It's a little bit big. If you're carrying it around, sometimes you want to carry something a little bit smaller.
All right, and we're going to leave with this last question here. Sorry, there was one more that came in.
The second last question.
Second to last, yes, I promise. Sorry, there's two more coming in here. Should there be any penalty for people that leave guns in unlocked vehicles?
That's a difficult question. I don't think anybody should do that. But how are you going to catch the person? I mean, if the gun isn't stolen or taken or used, I mean, people do it. You're not going to punish them for that. I think that the issue is complicated if somebody takes that firearm and then uses it for something untoward. But I just say flat out, don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, and I promise this is the last question, Patrick. I do promise. What state licenses should you get to have a maximum legal carry right? Say South Carolina to Arizona.
I was trying to check this morning. South Carolina permit is recognized in over 30 states. Not necessarily reciprocity, but recognized. So it used to be you had to get a New Hampshire permit if you wanted Florida. You had to get a different permit if you wanted Georgia. All those situations have resolved themselves. You can carry there now. You need to check some of those states require that it be a resident permit as opposed to a non-resident permit. There's some great websites, a lot of apps. Just go on your iPhone, go to your apps, and put in concealed carry, and you'll get immediately you'll get an app. You'll get a couple of apps that'll tell you what are the laws in all 50 states and some of the territories. When do you have to show your permit to a law enforcement officer? Do you have to? Do you not? So get on one of those. I have one that's free, concealed carry, and it'll tell you, it'll answer all those questions, and it updates periodically. So if the state changes its law, it shows up on that real quickly. So if you're getting ready to go to West Virginia, or if you're getting ready to drive to Arizona, pull out that app, take a look at it, and see what states you're going through, et cetera, and what your issues might be.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Patrick. Appreciate your insight, sharing a lot of great topics about CWP. Great job. I know I learned a lot. I hope those on the call did as well.
Technical question. Is this recorded and accessible anyway?
Yes, sir. It'll be uploaded to the district Facebook page and also the district YouTube channel. Yes, sir. Mary Gask is saying she will send it to you. Mary Gask will send it to you.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it. It actually became quite enjoyable. No stump the professor questions, at least no real bad ones.
Well, we appreciate your time again. Thank you so much. To close us down today, we will recite the Rotary four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thanks for watching today. We do another conversation with Rotary Action People on Friday at 11 o'clock. Hope to see you then. That's a wrap for Conversations with Rotary Action People for Wednesday, June 3rd. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.